You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
All right, what is good, everybody? It is Wednesday, November 13th. Nick Alberga, Jay Rosehill, the Wednesday edition of Leafs Morning Take. Something tells me my co-host is not going to be in a great mood today. What's going on, Rosie?
I could be worse, but I'll tell you, Nick, it stays like this. I wish I was covering the Winnipeg Jets instead of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Can you imagine that, covering the Jets right now? Win, and a win, and a win. No, Hellebucker's great, and Kyle Connor is great, and Nikolai Ehlers is great. It's like a win, 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 and then, yeah, they lost one game in 16 so far, 17 for the Winnipeg Jets. Different story for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Again, no clue what team to expect on any given night, Rosie.
Yeah, it's been their mantra for quite a few years here, the inconsistency. I think that this year has been better. They're, aside from that 3-game slide there where they were really slipping, I think that they've been more consistent and their good has been much better. That was a little bit of a reality check last night. They had absolutely nothing, and it was a very uninspiring effort, and it's something that you really hope as a Leafs fan that they're going to put behind them, but they just continually show up with one of those efforts. And it's kind of, I don't want to say when you least expect it, but it's almost like one of those games that's easy to overlook. It's like the guys in the locker room do the same thing and they just lay an absolute egg, and it looks brutal, and it brings Leafs Nation right back to reality.
Brings you tumbling down. I love Leafs Nation for a variety of reasons, but I think it's hilarious that they won 3 in a row without the captain. Everything was good. They lose one game, and maybe it's the way they lost, and people are just pointing fingers, want this guy at the lineup. Nick Robertson's on pace for 5 goals. Why is Ryan Reeves out there? It's typical Toronto. But again, I think it's about a process, and I think it's more about the way they lost, how disenthused they looked. And you can tell very early on, the Leafs had no jam, no gumption, no nothing in that game against a team you think you would get up for, a rival in the Ottawa Senators. It's been a one-way battle, by the way, the last little while when it comes to taking on the Ottawa Senators. But first and foremost, want to get together for a bit of an exercise off the top of today's show. I don't know if you saw this, but I guess the Pittsburgh Penguins are open for business. Lars Eller was traded. It's sort of intriguing. 2 franchises entering the season we thought were in the same sort of predicament, and one's buying, one's definitively selling. Lars Eller back to Washington. But I wanted to ask you, do you think Pittsburgh and Toronto are ideal fits? We talk about this a lot with Calgary. It's tough for Brad Treliving maybe to trade with that team. You'd have to feel it's probably the same way for Kyle Dubas now with the Pittsburgh Penguins headmanning that operation. But I look at that roster, I'm like, I really don't see a fit. There's some players who could make sense, but on paper, I'm not crazy about it. How about you?
Yeah, I think the first problem, is Dubas and Treliving working together is kind of difficult just based on the history. Wouldn't be their first choices to go and really hammer something out with each other, I wouldn't imagine. Also, I mean, who are we talking about here? Are we talking about a Carlson or a Malkin or something? You're not getting those guys on your roster. You're not fitting those contracts in. I'm not even sure they'd be the guys to fit. Carlson's kind of tapering off. You mentioned to me before the show started his for the Four Nations Cup, his coach is like, I regret picking him almost. That's where he's at. So are you scrambling to grab a guy like that at this point in time and put him in the market of Toronto? I don't see a lot of fits. Lars Eller probably could have been one and been that centerman that we could have used. That ship has sailed. So, I mean, I just don't think there's a whole lot there.
Yeah, there isn't. There's not many fits. It's weird to say because I'm really happy and impressed with Toronto's blue line. If you were to ask me a year ago, I'd say, hell yeah, to Erik Karlsson if it made sense. Right now, no. He stinks defensively. I think the only way I would like him is running the first power play unit. I think they've needed a right-handed shooting guy for a long period of time, but the fit just not there. A, considering how much he makes, and B, even if you cut 50% and retain on a deal, I don't see a fit. Up front, maybe your boy Michael Bunting, but I think a guy like Bunting is going to be hard for the Pens to trade to anybody, never mind the Toronto Maple Leafs. Evgeny Malkin, these guys got trade protection too, because if you missed it, aside from Crosby, reports came out yesterday that Pittsburgh is open to listening. It's going to be, if you recall a couple years back, even Toronto trying to trade, and it was Kyle Dubas again trying to trade Patrick Marleau's contract, had to give up a first that ended up being a pretty damn good player in Carolina to get rid of that contract a couple years ago. It's going to be tough business to put together.
Well, that's the thing. We're talking about who we like to add, and we're kind of hitting a dead end right away as soon as you start talking
Yeah.
about it. We haven't even talked about who do you give up to get anybody of value, and I don't think they're in a great spot to get a deal done. And I've said it before, this day and age in NHL, the trade market, it's just tough to put together a blockbuster for those reasons with the cap. It's not just like the old school, well, I'll throw this guy in and that guy, and it doesn't really matter. And say back in the 90s, the Rangers and the Flyers are just trying to make something work. They can just throw all kinds of stuff together and you got a blockbuster. But nowadays, these contracts and the trade protection, salary cap, it's just difficult to do. I just don't see it happening anytime soon with those type of players with that organization for a plethora of reasons. I think there's going to be something maybe come out of left field that gets snuck by if there's a deal done that's not as earth shattering as we're talking about here.
Yeah, by the way, that guy in Carolina that made the first round pick was Seth Jarvis, who has turned into a pretty damn good NHLer, and that's what the Maple Leafs had to give up to get rid of the contract of Patrick Marleau, which didn't make sense to begin with. But I think just to troll Pittsburgh, I'd be like, we want Crosby, just to see their reaction and to piss off Dubas, quite frankly. But like of getting Malkin on paper in a dream world, I think would make a bit of sense. I love where his game's at this season. He is declining. He is approaching the age of 40, but it's not a lengthy contract. I think he's in year 2 of a 3-year deal right now. But you're right. You hit the nail on the head. It's about return, what Pittsburgh wants, and then you add in the sort of caveat in the conversation that it's Kyle Dubas' former team. But man, I tell you that team is in a mess right now. Imagine 3 months ago, Sidney Crosby, even less than that, was signing an extension. It's been a horrible start. They can't get a save. They can't play defense. They can't score goals. But I think people trying to pin this on Pittsburgh having no shot, I don't buy that, because I think Washington was in the same conversation entering the year, and they reimagined their lineup, and that's tonight's opponent for the Maple Leafs. But they're off to a really, really good start. It shows you it can be done. I know it's early, but still, it's a pretty decent sample size of 15 games.
Yeah, it's the dust is starting to settle in the sense of you can get an idea of who has what and what's working and what's not. Coming up to December and starting to look at Christmas, and then boom, you blink your eyes and you're in the new year and you're starting to look at the trade deadline and whatnot. Is it goes by quick as long as the season is, and it's no panic here and there, and hey, it's still early. You can say that for an amount of time, but once you start getting into the 15, 20, 25 game range, you're starting to notice patterns in what you have and what you don't, and it's a good time to start to go shopping. And I mean, I don't look around the league real closely and dissect other teams' depth. I just don't care. I follow the Maple Leafs, do this show on the Maple Leafs. I care about the Maple Leafs. I kind of know what's going on in Edmonton and Calgary a little bit because of friends of mine that are, talking about that in the group chat. But, it's funny the things that how much can change in a season. I don't like it when people say, oh, the season's lost and this is over and they have no chance at that. And again, I bring up before, you just got to look at the St. Louis Blues being dead last at Christmas in the NHL, winning the Stanley Cup. Anything can happen. So as much as it's hard to make deals and change things and expect it to work, it's often a little tinker here and a little tinker there. Locker rooms are odd, man. You just bring in this other guy and it just kind of opens up this avenue, and all of a sudden everything just funnels down, and it can go well in a hurry. So, I mean, and again, to bring it back to the Maple Leafs, they're so close to having that, and it's just consistency that's biting them in the ass. And I'm sorry, I'm really starting to look at it as a leadership point of view. Like, how can they constantly show up with performances like yesterday, where it's 100% a mental thing, it's a maturity thing, it's a leadership thing to show up with that effort. And you can just tell, I can see it in the locker room. Everyone subconsciously is just kind of like, oh yeah, this will be nice, this will be good. Oh yeah, I'm gonna, like, if they're thinking about how sick of a play they're gonna make, how many points they're gonna get, how well this is gonna go for them, it just doesn't happen in the NHL. It's not magic. You have to come prepared every night, and oftentimes it's that veteran leadership with a voice who can have control of a room, who keeps guys on pace and on track. And I just don't think Toronto has that at this point in time.
I love how you're going scorched earth with this thing, and it just
Not
shows you
scorched earth,
how.
just is what it is. I'm not pissed. It's not the end of the world. I'm just saying, why do they keep dropping those? Why do they keep, like, you can run through the Boston Bruins and do this and that, and then it's a Tuesday night against Ottawa. They've had their number. They got Allmark in there. You want to keep this thing on the rails, and you just abandon ship with every goddamn system that has brought you success. and you think you're going to win the hockey game, and it blows up in your face. Like, how many times do they have to be taught that? And it's guys like William Nylander. As great as he's been, I'm a big fan of Willie, but people call him one of the leaders on the team. He's the guy that abandons the system first and wants to do his one-handed shit at the blue line. And when he does that, it blows up in his face, and the coach barks at him, and he's got thick skin. It's not going to bother him. But those are the guys that need to be in the room when the clock's ticking down. You're going to go out there for that game, and you're making sure, getting everyone's face going, are you ready for today? Do we know what we're doing? First shift is huge. We have to get the pucks deep. Nothing at the blue lines. Get it down. Like, all the things that Craig Berube's trying, those veterans need to be preaching, and they're just not. They're the ones making the mistakes. The Marners and the Nylanders are the ones abandoning ship first, and it blows up in their face, and that's a problem right now.
It's the concerning part for sure. That is the mystery surrounding this team, but it gets back to the old conversation. Can the core four make it work? I don't care if you don't want to call them the core four anymore. Can the nucleus of this team win when it matters most? And it's fair for the expectation that they're not going to be able to do. I don't care who's the coach. I don't care who's the goalie, who's in the back end, because at the end of the day, it's all about the important players in this roster. And then they put forth efforts like that, and it's like a humble reminder that, yeah, they might not show up when it matters most in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I understand your frustration. I think my only retort to that would be that every team has like shit nights at the office, if you want to call it that. You could speak to this better. I mean, there's just some mulligan games, stinkers, if you want to call it that. But again, I don't want to let this team off the hook, and we're going to dive in all of that. You talk about somebody who has experience going all the way and winning a Stanley Cup. Your former teammate in the AHL, Devante Smith-Pelly, now does broadcasting work with the Washington Capitals. He's a big-time Leafs fan, by the way. He'll probably not admit it when we do this interview, but he's a closet Leafs fan. He texts me about them all the time, has some words to say on the power play as well, but he's coming up in about 20 minutes here, Rosie.
Devo, that's good to hear, man. Probably more closet Leafs fans out there than people would think, but I don't know why they take heat. I think it's just how big they are, how brash they are, how passionate they are, and then how much they have dropped the ball and lacked success. It's easy target for other fans out there. Maybe that's why Devo's in the closet with his Leafs loving attitude a little bit.
No, I think he's a bit disgruntled. I think a couple of years back, he thought he was going to be a Maple Leaf, and the previous administration, surprise, surprise, it fell through. But Devonte Smith-Pelly's coming up in about 20 minutes from now. Also invite you to tune into tonight's edition, of the Leafs Nation After Dark with Zach Phillips. Again, it's the second half of a back-to-back, and this is going to be a tough one. I'll just put it out there right now. Washington's playing well. Ovechkin's on fire, but we're going to see again one of those measuring stick games for the Maple Leafs. Let's see what this team has in them. Do they have some chutzpah to come back after the disappointment of this loss against the rival Ottawa Senators, where it was a complete no-show? So make sure to get those super chats in at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcasts. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Prime Monday Night Hockey on Prime Video is here, the exclusive home for the NHL on Monday nights in Canada. This coming Monday, November 18th, tune in as Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers visit Cole Caulfield and the Montreal Canadiens. You can watch Prime Monday Night Hockey on Prime Video, no added cost to your membership. Just check out the sports section when you're inside the app. If you currently don't have a Prime membership, you can sign up for a 30-day free trial. Additionally, students are able to sign up for a 6-month free trial at amazon.ca/Amazon Prime. Prime Monday Night Hockey, it's on Prime. It's on Monday. Rosie, a 3-0 loss here to the Ottawa Senators, who have now won 4 in a row at Scotiabank Arena. I guess we could start there. I was really impressed by their effort.
Yeah, they look like they're ready to go, and they've had their number, and no real reason. Again, like, teams have hiccups, and you show up to the rink sometimes and nothing's going right and nobody's going. But on the other hand, like, can you learn lessons sometimes? Like, can the leadership not say, oh, I feel this one being one of those nights where, yeah, it's a Tuesday, yeah, we've been winning lately, the Ottawa Senators have our number, they're going to be fired up to come in here and make a statement, which they have the last 3 times in a row, and you abandon ship with the system that's gotten you all of your success. I mean, that's kind of peewee stuff. That's amateur stuff. That's stuff that a team that's claims they're ready to win the Stanley Cup needs to have control of. And I'm not saying you need to win that game. I'm talking about how you lost the game. And from the drop of the puck, from the leadership, I mean, first shift, clogged up on the blue line. William Nylander, get put get make the smart play, make the high percentage play, go north with it, get pucks deep, live to fight another day when you run into traffic. No, I'm going to put one hand on my stick, and Lord even knows what he was trying to fucking do with that thing. Goes around, and then Morgan Riley, I'm going to take this opportunity with Willie to barrel down the boards, even though I do not know if the puck's going deep or not. Overskate it. What happens? Odd man rush the other way in the back of your net. Good start. Good start. Way to set the tone for the night. And that's your leadership right there. And in my mind, with Craig Berube there, the proof's in the pudding. When they play Craig Berube hockey, they have success. End of story. They've been trying to find an identity for years now. They've been trying to get rid of old bad habits for years now. They've got a guy in there that's going to instill a system that works, that's going to hold them accountable to make sure that it works. And what do? As soon as they have a bit of success, they abandon ship. And yeah, it's just 2 points. I get it. And it's not the end of the world. And I'm not going scorched earth, but it's very clear to see as a fan what's going on here. And you watch it and you're like, well, there it is again. Like, why do they revert back to that stuff? And in my mind, it's the leadership in the locker room that doesn't hold it accountable. I mean, I've on teams where, yeah, there's not much of that going on and guys get away with it. And some guys are like, nah, who's going to say what to me? And there's other times where you're like, that guy is going to get in my face and embarrass me in front of the team if I don't follow suit. So let's just play the right way. And, again, not scorched earth, not the end of the world, but it was annoying to see that after seeing how good they can be when they do follow the system.
It really is mystifying. And again, we talk about Leafy losses. It just doesn't feel like this Leafs team can lose properly. Like a hard fought 3-2 game. Maybe you surrender a goal with 7 minutes left and you lose the game. Every time they lose, it seems to be like a disappointing fashion where in a game like this, you could tell, man, we talked about it. 41 seconds in, an odd man rush after a bad pinch, a terrible giveaway where Nylander probably gets it in deep. They don't get scored on. We called the Claude Giroux point prop. 41 seconds in, he gets an apple to Norris, and it just felt like they were chasing for the rest of the night. And unfortunately, when that happens, I feel like you're chasing in all facets of the game, and you get back into old habits. I thought the power play was fucking awful, man. Like you can speak to this better, obviously, having played in the league and played high level hockey. I think it seeps into the rest of your game. When you start the game that way, you make a mistake like that, it just goes down the bench a bit.
Yeah, it does. It sucks the life out of it. I mean, just like a good penalty kill can get some momentum, like, that clock's ticking down, you flip it up in the air and get it down one more time for a good clear. You gave them nothing, you shut them down. You can see their stud power play dudes, their number one unit is looking at each other like a little bit of frustration. Everyone's clapping, good job, boys, good job, good kill. Buddy jumps out of the bench, goes and buzzes, and it's a momentum grabber. And killing penalties is huge. It doesn't get enough credit because it's not sexy. It's not on the highlight reel. It's not on the score sheet. It's one of those unsung things. But yeah, it's huge when you can't score on the power play. You can see the polar differences between when they're not scoring and when they are scoring. And yeah, that one goal can get you over the hump, but even off the scoreboard, yeah, it reverberates through the bench, through the team. It's a momentum saver or killer. And in the ways that the Leafs struggle in the power play, it's kind of like this discombobulated, embarrassing, like we just did a drop pass to give it to the guy to run it with all the speed. You got literally like 6 guys piled up on the blue line, and then you're almost over, but you drop pass it to another fucking guy, and then 3 guys skate offside. It just screams no idea what you're doing out there and completely freewheeling it. And, maybe I'm not going to act like I'm an expert on entries and power play setups, but I feel like when they're struggling, they have trouble getting it in their end and setting it up. And that starts there. And when you screw that up twice in a power play, you got to get the second line on. And I mean, you got 35 seconds left on the peeper, and you basically kill it right off the bat. So they still got work to do in that realm. But as much success as they've had with Austin Matthews being gone the last few games, maybe that was glaring its head right there that they're without their number one guy.
Yeah, maybe that's it. I really felt like this team turned back the clock last night where they were just too cute. I don't know if you want to call it soft, but the forecheck was nowhere to be found. I like the first couple of shifts from the fourth line, namely Ryan Reeves, but after that, it's like Ottawa sort of imposed their will. And I think Craig Berube said it in the post game, like you're not really going to have success if you don't have the puck all night. And they were chasing all night. But to your point, specifically about the power play, just way too cute, man. These bullshit passes and sauce passes and zone entries. Like, just put the puck on net. Again, easy for us to say watching here, but man, oh man, I think they're victim of just trying to be too pretty, like it's an all-star game sometimes. And I think it just seeps to the entire roster where it's like you watch line by line, some of these guys go out there and are trying to toe drag the entire team. Like, I think, for example, Max Domi's trying to be too cute right now. Just shoot the puck, play your game. You look now, he's pointless in the last 10 games. He took some heat last night. So did Nylander. Like, is it weird, by the way, that I like when Craig Berube blows up? I just wonder, and obviously you can speak to this. Does that act get tired, Rosie, of the coaches snapping? We've seen it quite a bit early on here.
I like it too, because there's nothing more frustrating than what Leafs fans have watched in the past is these ugly shifts and bad habits and nothing gets said, and it's pretty clear that there's no accountability, and that's a word we've been using since the Craig Berube hire. And does it get old? I mean, it depends who the guy is, what the message is, and what he keeps yelling. But I mean, he's not snapping back there. He's just saying, that's the shit I'm talking about. That can't happen. Cut that out. Get that out of your game. Like, it's frustrating because the proof's in the pudding with the success that they've had. They're not playing that way. And I agree with you. You watch the power play and it's like above the knee high sauce passes rink wide, where in the NHL, the defenders are so good at getting a piece of a puck with their stick, even if they don't get all of it, knock it down and throw it down the ice. It takes the sauce off it. The guy's got to use his foot to corral the puck, and then there's pressure on. He's got to shake the pressure and find the other guy, and it just discombobulates everything. And I was watching that power play, and it just cross seam, sauce, like winging it. That doesn't work. And then you watch Mitchie be up, kind of just walking down to the top of the circle on the side, and no, walk down, walk down. He ends up on the goal line, takes a shot from there, and it's like, that's what you were looking for. It blows your mind. These guys are too good for that, and it's like they're outsmarting themselves. Like, you have the skill, give yourself the most chances you can. Where were you struggling early on? Getting pucks on net, getting those bounces, getting traffic in front, getting the dirty rebounds. So now that you've had a little bit of success, now it's time to go back to the absolute prettiest tic-tac-toe, or walk through everyone all by yourself, or a sauce pass through 3 sticks lands right on his tape for a tap in. Like, if you're looking for that shit, you're going to be disappointed time after time. And it's a little bit frustrating that they haven't learned their lesson. And as soon as they get a good chunk of success, they go back to their bullshit, because I don't know why, but stick with what works. Like, this coach has demanded a certain amount of accountability by playing a certain way, and when you do that, you have had success. So what's the problem here, guys? Why do you keep reverting back to your summer hockey, road hockey, fancy all-star game bullshit that has been blowing up in your face for years and years and years? Yeah, it's a bit frustrating.
The analogy I like to use is like, it's like potty training a little one, which is happening right now with my niece, where the majority of the time she remembers like where to go, how to go, and then sometimes you sort of forget, and you have a mistake on the couch, or wherever. Like, it's so comparable, because like you watch the Leafs at their peak, at their best, Rosie, and you're like, my goodness, like this team's legit. I always like to circle that game against Tampa. And then there's like that humble reminder every couple weeks where there's like, yeah, there's going to be some growing pains. And unless they buy in, this team is going nowhere. And last night I thought was a reminder of that.
So we could say that they're partially potty trained Maple Leafs, but once in a while they still piss their pants.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
we should
Exactly.
get shirts made up that just say "Don't shit your pants." No, it is that, man. It's a little Jekyll and Hyde still. Like, we've been talking about their consistency and the leafy ways they lose, and there it was. They've been playing fantastic hockey. And maybe we look at it too closely, and I know other teams do drop games and stuff, but the way they do it, it's just like, you're like, no other teams, big boys don't just all of a sudden start playing street hockey and it blows up in their face, and they can't even right the course, or correct right the ship, or correct course. It's why Craig Berube is barking back there. He's going, what the hell am I watching? What are you guys doing? We have buried that stuff in the past, and we are committed to playing the right ways. But something about this team can't quite commit fully. And when the opportunity is there to think that they're going to have it easy, they do their BS, and it blows up in their face, and they have an ugly loss, and they get booed off the ice. It's just, I can't help but think of anything else besides leadership, veteran leadership in the locker room that will not allow it. I don't see Auston Matthews standing up in the room and barking and everyone just having complete respect. I don't see John Tavares doing it. I don't see Morgan Riley doing it. I don't see Nylander standing up and holding everyone accountable to playing a certain way and being a disciplined hockey team from within, not being yelled at by the coach to play a certain way. That's a team that's not ready to win. You have to understand and access it from within the room. And so far, it's not there enough to be a consistent hockey team. But again, 15 games in, I'm not going scorched earth. I'm just saying what the problem clearly is from the outside. And do they have the character in there to fix it?
Pretty decent question to ask me, even if it's November 13th. Every morning I wake up, I go over to the LeafsNation.com, which you should do as well. And I saw a quote from John Tavares last night saying we should be disappointed.
Good one. Good one. Lessons learned. Hey, there's a lesson learned right there. We should be just. Yeah, I don't know. Like John, I like him, but just with his interviews, he just seems very flat, quiet, monotone, does his thing. I can just see him doing his skates up before the game and just not really saying anything and just going to go out there and lead by example. And that's fine. But when you've got a team that's like this, that can stray off, the path a little bit and it bites them, who's the one like if a Chris Pronger was in there, he wouldn't allow it to happen. And I'm not the biggest Chris Pronger fan in the whole wide world, but there's a guy that commanded respect, paid attention to what was going on, and was a voice that you better listen to him or your life's going to be shitty. That's just what a veteran captain with leadership written all over him has to be. And I think they're too much buddy buddies in there for anyone to be that guy. And especially with the leadership, or quote unquote leadership, the veteran guys, the studs, the guys that are number one on the team, I just don't think they have that guy, that Chris Pronger, to hold everyone accountable and make sure that we don't drop the ball tonight against Ottawa.
At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. A couple more things before we get to Devante Smith-Pelly here on Leafs Morning Take. I thought the Ottawa Senators had a chance to do the funniest thing ever when the Leafs pulled their goalie down 3-0. Thankfully, it didn't happen there with the empty net. And I'm going to be positive, Pete, glass half empty, half full. Some positives I'll grab. Anthony Stolarz, I thought was really good again, 38 saves. And, I just think so, the fact of this team, you've got to, there's going to be situations like this where it doesn't go your way. So, I think the goaltending and I think the fact that this team was able to go 3-1-0 on a 4-game homestand without Auston Matthews, I'll take that every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Yeah, no question. Their record's good without Austin, and maybe it's not fair to be kind of hard on them today. And I'm not saying sky's falling. I think they could easily kind of find their game and get their peepees whacked last night by Berube and this morning. And you watch the video, and I would pull up every BS play that they had last night and show them and say, this is what we're trying to avoid. If you guys want to have good feelings in the locker room, if you guys want to rattle off points, if you guys want to get hot and have streaks, if you guys want to have day offs all the time, if you want to have easy practices and be in the driver's seat, then this is the garbage that has to go away. But they're not quite there yet. I have my reasons on why. But yeah, big picture, that could have gone a heck of a lot worse without Auston Matthews. For whatever reason, they got their power play going for periods of time, and it wasn't there last night. And you know what? If they won last night and played the right way, it would be an easy excuse to drop the ball tonight against Washington. Now they're going to have a little wake-up call. Chiefs not going to be happy. They're going to have to pull themselves up and realize they want to play the game properly. And I think if they do that, they're better against good teams than they are against lower-rung teams because they decide to get their head screwed on straight and play the right way. So we'll see what they got tonight against Wash, but no easy task, really.
Either that or Rasmus Sandin pots a hat trick tonight. You just never know what you're going to get with this Maple Leafs team. Is of course, Sandin a Leaf a couple years back. The following interview is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers. Get custom ring building delivered in less than 4 weeks. With the Charm Masterpiece program and unbeatable pricing policy, Charm Diamond Centers is proudly Canadian-owned and operated since 1972 with more than 85 locations across the country through Charm and their sister brands. For more information, go to charmdiamondcenters.com. Maybe we should get ourselves a ring, but today's guest has a ring. Back in 2018, he won the Cup with the Washington Capitals. Capitals TV analyst Jay Rosehill's former teammate in the American Hockey League. And my boy, Devante Smith-Pelly, our guest here on Leafs Morning Take. What's going on, Devo?
How we doing, boys? How are we?
Looks like
We're
you're in the
good.
champagne room there, buddy. Holy smokes, what a background. I love it.
Yeah, a little boutique hotel here in Washington, D.C. It's not bad.
I know you watched the game last night, Devo, and we're going to get to Alex Ovechkin, the hot start in this matchup with the Leafs and Capitals. But what was your read on last night's game? Because watching it, man, it was stinky.
Yeah, just a little bit sleepy to start the game. It's just kind of the story of the Leafs, right? Like they play amazing for a couple weeks. I think they probably played 4 or 5 really good games in a row. Then they have a dud. I think that's pretty regular for most teams is, having a dud in there. It's just, I feel like the Leafs, they go a little shorter in between them. You know what I mean? So I think that's what the frustrating part is.
And what do you think? You've been part of a team that wins the Stanley Cup. Obviously, they don't have a habit of dropping a lot of games and having those stinkers. What is it that good teams have that allows them to be more consistent that the Leafs are lacking?
It's hard to really put your finger on it, but I know, in the room, once you win 2, 3 in a row, it's let's keep this going. Let's try and get 7, 8, 9, 10 and not letting that slip, not getting complacent when, you win 4 in a row. And not saying, oh, the next game doesn't really matter. We just won 4 in a row. Like you want to ring off 10 in a row and not let that complacency kind of slip in. So obviously I can't speak for what's going on in their room, but I don't know if anyone, after they play 3 games in a row is saying, guys, like, let's keep this going. Why would we stop? You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And I think consistency is a big issue with this team. It was under Sheldon Keefe, and it remains that way through 17 here with Craig Berube. I know you've got a hot take or two regarding the power play, and I think the Capitals are a perfect example of a team the Maple Leafs could look at and the way they run things. But what's been your read? It's been fun to document on our end. I'll say that first and foremost, the Leafs power play, roller coaster start for them. But what's been your read in general, Devo, on the Leafs power play so far this season?
I think, man, they have obviously 5 extremely skilled guys to go out at the same time. I think they just don't have, their go-to play, their go-to player. I think the puck should probably go through Mitch Marner, and they should be trying to set up Austin Matthews to shoot. I think that should be, no matter how they get there, I think that should be the 2 things that they try and focus on, right? When I watch their power play, there's a lot of moving around. I don't feel like anyone really has a spot where they're trying to be an expert at that spot. It's sometimes Marner's on the right side, he's on the left side, he's low. I look at the best power plays, now in recent past, the best players have a spot and they master that spot. Kucherov is always on the half wall. Ovi, Stamkos are always on their one-timer side no matter what. And I just don't think they have that. I think, you have one of the better passes in Marner and have one of the better passes or shooters in Austin Matthews. And I think those are the 2 things you should be trying to do at all times.
Yeah, prime example of that's Alexander Ovechkin. Obviously, it's a foregone conclusion in my mind. He's going to be the number 1 scorer in the history of the game. And when you watch it, it's almost ridiculous where he just stands there like his controller disconnected, and then one blink of the eye from a defender, and it's just clap bomb either side of the net every time to the tune of more than anyone who's ever done it. What did you find when he's on the peeper and say they take him away? Does that just open up other options and they can't simply take Ovi away, or you'll be giving up too much elsewhere? Did you notice that when you were playing?
Yeah. So, when I was there, the power play was Backstrom, Kuznetsov, Oshie, Carlson, Ovi. Obviously, everyone knows where we're trying to go. But once, they take that away, they have Oshie in the middle who, that shot from the middle, I don't think anyone in the league now still can replicate it. He had a ton of power play goals. Carlson at the top can bomb it. Kuzi, obviously, one of the better passers, and Backstrom, a legend too. So, you get on the half wall. We know we're trying to go to Ovi. Okay, they're taking that away. Now it's a 4-on-3 on the other side. And when I was there, they had play after play after play after play for every single situation. And it was annoying for me because I was killing penalties, and every single day we worked on the power play. Every single day, morning skate, whether the practice was 10 minutes or 20 minutes, every day we worked on the power play, and every day I'm killing penalties against those guys. And they had just play after play. And it opens everything up. Everyone obviously knows where you're trying to go, and then you do something else, and then Oshie's wide open, Carlson's wide open. It just makes everything way easier.
Devo, that's the amazing part about Alex Ovechkin's career. I would say 88% of the goals have been so predictable, but nobody can stop it. And he's off to an unbelievable start this year. Like there was a lot of people questioning if Ovechkin had anything left in the tank. And I think he's put those rumors to bed very, very quick in the season. 32 goals away from passing Gretzky. What have you made of Ovi's start? What have you seen differently in his game? And do you think he gets there this season?
Yeah, I think to start this year, I honestly think he was just pissed off about last year. Being pissed off about 30 goals is hilarious, but I don't think he loved how the season went as a whole. I definitely don't think he loved how the playoff series went. They got smacked pretty easily. So, he doesn't need a whole lot of motivation. I think he looked at his whole season as a whole and just did not want that to happen again. So he came in full of energy. He's moving a lot better than he was at the start of last year, which is allowing him to get open. And obviously, if he gets open, it's game over, right? So he looks amazing, and I think he's definitely getting it this year. I mean, I said it before the start of the season. It's hard for me to, doubt him. I've seen him, get close to 600 goals, to get close to all these records. Anytime he gets anywhere near it, he turns it to a whole different level. So I think we'll be seeing that this year.
Well, speaking of Ovi, on your guys' cup winning season, every team has a stinker and you can come out flat. Who was the guy that would more often than not make sure that didn't happen within the locker room? Was it Ovechkin?
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of older guys. We had, Ovi would speak up. TJ Oshie would speak up. Brooks Orpik would speak up. We had a group of, 7 or 8 older guys who, after a stinker period, it wasn't always just 1 or 2 guys. They would make sure everyone knew that wasn't acceptable. And I think that's good. It doesn't always have to be one guy just standing up and doing it every single time. It's good to have a group of guys that keep everyone in check.
Devo, obviously looking back at your cup run, people are going to remember the famous parts, obviously, of it, the goaltending change, Ovechkin winning a cup, stuff like that. But the one thing I remember, because I'm your boy, is 7 tucks for Devante Smith-Pelly, and there were big-time goals at that, dude. So my question to you, you look at this Maple Leafs roster, who can be that Devante Smith-Pelly for this team in the playoffs, in your opinion?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, I think based on style and kind of how he gets hot, maybe Bobby McMahon. I feel like, last year he got extremely hot. At the start of this year, he was hot. He's a little colder now, but you could see he has that in him, right? He does go to the net. He has decent hands, has a good shot. So that would probably be the guy that you look at and say, stylistic wise, it could be him, just based on the fact that he does those things. He goes to the net, and it seems like when he gets hot, he gets really going, right? So that's all you kind of need, is to get hot for a month and a half, 2 months, and it could change your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, shit, man. I was gonna ask you that. Like, I love the fact that it has changed your life. Like, can you just speak to that? Because we often talk about that in this market, and people joke about it. You win a cup, you'll be a legend for life. But you're actually a legend for life in Washington. You're not gonna admit this, but dude, it's true, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm extremely grateful that I was able to be a part of that team and play a good role, and it really did change my life, because I retire and looking for things to do, and Washington comes calling, and now I'm on their network in DC. So I don't know if guys really realize what kind of people my age, the legends are Darcy Tucker, Shane Corson, Matt Sun. We can name all those teams, every single player, right? And they never won. They went on a couple runs. They were good teams. So I just imagine if you win a Stanley Cup in Toronto, people will never forget your name. 200 years from now, they'll still be talking about Pontus Holmberg if they win the Stanley Cup. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
Don't
Do you
fucking
think
kill
if
me,
you
okay?
if you picked up some of the rosters that the Leafs have had over
Yeah.
plenty of time, if you pick them up and drop them in a different market, do you think it would be easy to say they'd have a lot more success than they have? Do you think that big market is what prevents them from getting over the hump, or do you just think they haven't had the personnel the last 40 years?
It's definitely just been personal. I mean, I think the market is the market. I mean, I personally would love to play in Toronto. Like, I played in Montreal. Like, I loved it. There were times where it was definitely hard, but when you were winning and doing well, like, there was nothing better than playing in Canada. So the market definitely is tough. I get it, but if you have a good team, you can definitely get through that. If you're winning, you're the best in the world. So if you just do well, everything's great in these markets, right? So I understand it's definitely tough, but you got to embrace it, and you'll be a legend if you just make one decent run.
I almost turned off this feed when you referenced Pontus Holmberg and being a legend in 200 years from now. I just somehow, some way, but I will bring up the fact that me and you always have a chuckle over that time the Leafs won a playoff series. We went out after they beat Tampa, and you were just laughing. You're like, one playoff victory, but yeah, that's how desperate we are for success in this market. Before we let you go, you can be bitterly honest, which you always are with me. I referenced bringing you in. You're a closet Leafs fan. You watch this team. You'd love to see this team hoist Lord Stanley. Don't deny that, man. What do you see in this team? Do you have a feeling with this team? Do you like them moving forward?
I mean, they're definitely different. You could definitely see, I think a couple of weeks ago was Tampa. That game, like, they smacked them. Like, they destroyed them, but it's just not enough of that. You know what I mean? And I think they have to find the happy medium of that style of game where they're, running around, physically dominating the team, but they also have to score as well. Like, they have to find this medium where, you're being responsible, but you got to make plays and you have to score goals or you're not going to win. And that's always been their problem. It's never been defense. It's never been grit. Like, they always just can't score that next goal. So if it's not going to be one of the bigger guys, which, it should be, who's going to find that extra goal you need to extend your season and give the big guys another night to get going? I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say with this team, but they have to score more. That's all there is to it. They can. I do like the way they're playing physically, all that stuff, but you have to score more or else it's not going to work.
So you're telling me there's a chance, Devo. You're the absolute man. Thank you so much for your time today, and enjoy the game tonight. You're in DC. You're going to be on TV covering this game. That must be pretty damn cool for you, and have some fun, okay?
Thanks, boys. See ya.
Thanks, Devo.
The man, the myth, the legend, Devante Smith-Pelly, an absolute gem. And I always love some of the texts I get from Devo, just the breakdown. It's always great to get the perspective, and you chime in the group chat, just the perspective of being a former player in this league and knowing that feel if you're Devante Smith-Pelly, how to get over the top and finally win a Stanley Cup and what your team needs to go through. So it's always good to get that perspective, Rosie.
Yeah, for sure. I like picking guys' brains because, most guys play season after season after season, and every team's kind of missing that something. And when you get a guy that has got the team and been part of a team that had it all and won it all and got over the hump and beat everybody and was the best team in the league, it's like, what was that special sauce that you had that year that you never had found before? And, oftentimes it's a little bit of that chemistry. It's having the right system. I think the biggest thing is the buy-in from every single guy. Like, every team that I've had that did well, just everyone would look at each other and they're just nodding, like, yeah, we know what we're doing. Oh yeah, you're all on the same page. You're all buying in, like, yeah, believe in each other. And you just know you're all pulling the same direction on that same rope. And then the teams that don't really do well, you got one guy who's kind of dicking around with his skates during the meeting, and the one guy that's kind of ho-hum, but he's do paying lip service, but he's going to go out and play his way. And then one guy gets, animosity with the coach and couple of him guys, he's mad he's not on the power play, so he goes off on his page and I'm just going to worry about myself and pay attention to my career. It just fractures teams, and it's tough to get that chemistry with that many guys in the same locker room, but when you get it, it can be pretty magical. And I think the biggest frustration with the Leafs is that they have that at times in a big way, and they look like, oh my god, like no one's going to take these guys down, and then the very next day it can be the polar opposite. So I think that's the biggest frustration with Leafs Nation. If you were just building a rebuild and you were making baby steps and consistently getting a little bit better every year, but you knew what to expect, you could live with it. But these guys, like, I don't know. I don't think you can blame the general manager. He's put together a team that looks like it should win. He's covered all his bases.
Yep.
He's plugged all the holes. Like, these guys should get it done and at least do something of value and make some noise in the league. But it's just that level of consistency, and like, who's going to show up tonight in Washington? I have no bloody idea. They could blow the doors off them, or they could get absolutely gobsmacked. And I honestly don't know which one it's going to be, because they've proven to be that inconsistent. That's the frustrating thing with this organization.
At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. I think you're so bang on with that assessment. At the end of the day, the bigger conversation, which we're not going to do for 3 hours on today's show, I think you're so right on the take about Treliving. Like, I mean, there's only so much a GM can do. I even like the O'Reilly team a couple years ago. At the end of the day, it comes down to the boys who make the most money, the guys who make the most money. Like, for example, last night's game was a reason why you pay Nylander and Marner and those guys that much money to take over a game like that. And just quite frankly, they don't when it matters most. So that's why I like to hit my head against the wall sometimes. People even want to discuss the conversation about re-signing John Tavares right now, re-signing Mitch Marner. It's like the same old bullshit with this team. It's like, you don't need to make those decisions, because if they do that, they're bringing it back with the guys who just can't get the job done before. I'm not going to get fired up. Shout out to our guy, Zach Phillips, in the chat. Make sure to check out tonight's edition of the Leafs Nation After Dark. Zach was late to the show today. He was pretty much wondering what he missed. Well, Rosie called out the leadership core like 7 minutes into the show, so you missed that quite a bit, Zach.
Rewind the tape. Yeah, I mean, you try to find reasons on why this inconsistency happens, and I mean, at the end of the day, you can see that the coaching staff wants to hold guys accountable, and I just get the feeling that it's not coming from within. And I mentioned Chris Pronger as being a guy who would stand up and like demand that happens. He'd point his finger at Willie and say, Willie, that circus shit can't happen tonight. We're playing too well. We're on too good of a roll here. Make sure you're buying into the system. Make sure everyone's buying into this stuff. Let's keep playing the way we did and keep rattling off these wins. Keep building towards better. And then like, that's like the accountability. And everyone's like, yeah. Like little refocus. But I just think it's quiet in there. You can see it on their face. You can see it with their body language. I don't think that's happening from within.
Yeah, my apologies to the folks in the chat. I was referencing Kyle Dubas's Leafs, Ryan O'Reilly. I did like that team quite a bit. Rosie can speak to that. They won a playoff round. I started to get a bit of a feel in there, but damn, Florida popped in there, and it was good night, Jim Kite. Although, if you do recall, the first 2 games of that series, the Leafs were the better team and just couldn't get the job done, which has been the same story for this franchise. Maybe this year's different, maybe not, but certainly some reason for concern, certainly some reason for optimism when it comes to this Leafs team. So onwards we move, Rosie. The Washington Capitals have had an unbelievable start to the season. We talked about Alex Ovechkin with Devante Smith-Pelly. Toronto took all 3 meetings with the Caps last year. The big story early on is Toronto struggles on the road, which is a flip from last year where they're really good on the road, but 2-3-2 on the road this year. And I think this is a sneaky big start for Joseph Woll, who is 2-2-0, 2.27, a 905. Not saying that Stolarz was the reason he was good in that game, but if you win, plain and simple, you start to take that net back a bit and cause a bit of a fight if you're Joseph Woll. So he's like the number 1 guy I'm looking at tonight for a big effort.
Yeah, I think that'll end up being a storyline no matter what happens. Tonight, I've been saying before, there's going to be a period of time here where Joseph Woll starts to creep back into, at least splitting the net. And Stoley's probably not going to have a 9.4, 9.5 save percentage, whatever it is, for the entirety of the season. There's going to be points in time where they flip-flop and yin and yang and ham and egg it a little bit. So I think Joseph Woll will end up being a story on this performance tonight. But again, I have a very difficult time making a prediction on this one tonight. I know that the Caps are favored fairly heavily, so that's something that's rare with this team. And I don't know, if you got the coins, you can bet on the Leafs tonight and get some value, which usually they're a minus team, but I don't know, man. I have been fooled too many times. My account is at like 0 right now because I keep thinking tonight's going to be the night to make an exclamation point on the season, and I keep picking wrong.
Can you believe? Yeah, I know you're right. Can you believe people continue to defend Nick Robertson? He's got 1 goal in 15 games, and I made out a smart ass tweet last night saying how I wanted Alex Steves in for Nick Robertson, and people comboed with Ryan Reeves, who actually has a bit of an identity. I know over at the LeafsNation.com today, I did put out an article saying they're playing Ryan Reeves too much in terms of dressing him. I don't think you need to play him in 14 to 17 games, but I still think there's a need for a Revo. They're just getting nothing for the bottom six. I still can't get over Devo's joke or comment about Pontus Holmberg. He just has not looked good. Robertson's not producing. When he's not producing, there's no point to have Nick Robertson in your lineup. He's not a checker. He's not a defensive-minded guy. But again, I'll debate that until I'm blue in the face. I'm curious to see which team shows up. Same old story. Who plays? Lineup changes. I think for a team struggling for offense 5-on-5, maybe it makes a bit of sense to see Alex Steves, what he can bring. I mean, 9 goals in 10 AHL games. This guy's Nick Robertson light.
Yeah, I was going to say he's got damn near a goal a game in the American League, and that is saying something. You know, he's going to be full of piss and vinegar coming into his first game this season, and just his workload and his attention to detail and his following the game plan is going to be spot on. And yeah, it's probably time to start looking at, you know, the Lorentzes and the Camps, and you look at Bobby McMahon to a degree, Max Domi, Bobby Robertson, Holmberg. Like, are you guys gonna do something here? Like, how many? I didn't get that many cracks at it. It's just an endless loop of them doing the same thing. Like, you got to produce at some point in time, and I hope it's just a slump for them. But you know, especially when we lost Austin Matthews, everything kind of went ching, and one guy goes up a level, and then all of a sudden that bottom six just looks almost abysmal. I mean, there's potential there, but their production lately has been nil. And you know, I feel for Max Domi. I feel like he's trying to do the right things, and he's clearly snake bitten, but he doesn't have anything going on in the season. And there's a lot of guys behind him who maybe aren't as the highest of pedigree as Max, but it all funnels down in that bottom six. I would agree, man. They are not doing anything because ultimately you can't, as this team knows, you can't ride 4 guys into the sunset and have them just do everything. If they're not scoring, you need to have that secondary, tertiary scoring that's going to pick up the slack. And they just don't have any of it right now. When they have games like that, it's like it all just goes away. And, you know, it'd be nice to get these guys going a little bit.
By the way, Connor Dewar made his season debut last night. I'm sure you caught that. John Gallagher writes in, how is Minton doing? He's played 2 games so far with the Marlies. He has 2 apples, but rest assured, if the struggles continue offensively and the need for a center, I think Minton's going to be up in no time. I don't want to say this team is desperate, ravaged by injury right now. Yarncroke is nowhere to be found. Pacioretty's going to miss a few weeks here. So we're going to find out quite a bit about Toronto's depth, but I think you're bang on in that assessment. It's a work in progress. They need to do something offensively, or this team, again, is in big time trouble. But again, it changes from game to game. Do not forget that. We could easily roll on this show tomorrow and be like, this team's the best team in the NHL. So be wary, be careful of that. It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, all in uppercase today. What did we bet on yesterday? Oh, I bet on the Claude Giroux point that hit 41 seconds in.
I know. I remember that text came through. What did I take? I think I took a nice guy goal, and I took the Leafs. Took the Leafs all the way, as I mentioned. But what do you got tonight?
Well, Zach Phillips in the chat, we'll start with him. He likes a Bobby McMahon anytime goal. By the way, I'm officially retiring the Nick Robertson anytime goal for the time being on this podcast. I think I've tried to hit that 6 times. He's got 1 goal in 15 games. Okay, that's your guy who had 4 tucks in the preseason. That's your guy who scored in 30 this season, Leafs Nation. So I'm giving up on that front. I like the McMahon look. Just give me a fucking goal. Give me a win. My bad. I'm not allowed to swear in this segment. Sorry to Bet365. Just a little annoyed with this team sometimes. But all in all, I want to see the effort. Joey Wall's a guy I'm looking at tonight, but I'm going to play the Maple Leafs to bounce back and win this game. I think it's going to be a hard one, Rosie. I think they're going to be in for a reality check early on. This is not last year's Washington Capitals. I've watched quite a bit of the Caps. They're trucking right now. The OV shot prop would intrigue me as well. And I think since he's been producing, anytime goal for him. Dylan Strome is another guy I would tap in tonight. They're calling him Dylan Backstrom in Washington because he's playing his best Nicky Backstrom part right now, feeding Ovechkin for the 1T.
Yeah, I can see that. I got my eyes tonight on William Nylander. I think he needs to have a response. He's playing too well. He's part of that leadership. I think he's got mojo this year. Had a bit of a stinker, started the game off, lost, his understanding of what they're trying to do out there. Maybe got a little excited trying to, run the show and be the man out there without Austin. I think that little whack he got on the bench is going to kind of inspire him to be like, all right, you want to see me bear down and do it right? Here we go. And I'm taking him for the shot prop tonight. I think he's going to be throwing a lot of pucks at the net.
I love the PP whack. It always goes to Willie Nylander. You know why? He's the only guy you can handle the PP whack. Like,
Agreed.
Mitch Marner's had a pretty good season, but there has been moments where he's made some plays, and I'm not going to single him out. There's a bunch of guys on the roster, and there's a reason why it's Domi, and there's a reason why it's Nylander who gets PP whacked. I'll just say that.
They can handle it for sure. And Dome or Nylander's, his mistakes are the other guys just kind of go away and don't do anything and just kind of shy away. And Willie basically tries to reinvent the wheel sometimes and make some, highlight reel play where everyone can't believe how skilled he is. And problem with that is they're low percentage plays. And when they don't work out, it usually ends up as an odd man rush or just flat out in the back of your net. So he's kind of got to get that out of there. But I think he's got the gusto to kind of readjust on the fly. And I think he'll be playing the Berube style of hockey tonight. And I hope he's throwing a lot of pucks on net. And I hope he's a big reason for a big win tonight.
It's too bad because my brother texted me yesterday. He's a firefighter in Toronto, and Willie Nylander actually walked by their fire hall yesterday. I guess he was on the way to the TTC to take it to the game, and he gave them a nod, and my brother was all fired up, and rightfully so. Willie's on fire, this and that, and that's the type of night they had. Sucks.
Maybe the boys at the hall distracted him, and he ended up having a tough first shift that set the tone for the entire rest of the game.
You would think that would fire you up to see like real life heroes, but I guess not.
Yeah, it didn't work. Maybe take your vehicle to the rink this time, really, next time you have one, because that wasn't very good luck. You'd think it would be, yeah, but I don't know. I think it's between the ears with these guys, and they got to come up with a big performance. Like I said, they're underdogs tonight, which is rare for this team. We will see how they respond. Maybe someone's primed up to make some money.
Yep. I think a lot of content coming your way this week. Taylor Swift is in town, so maybe a couple of these guys head on to the Taylor Swift concert. There's 6 of them in the next 2 weeks at Rogers Center in Toronto. So we're going to cover that on Leafs Morning Take. That's what we do on this hard-hitting podcast. So, Rosie, great stuff today. We're feeling a lot more optimistic. I think it was a nice therapy session, if you want to call it that. The latest dud for the Maple Leafs, the Battle of Ontario. Very one-sided right now. But again, we move forward to Thursday's edition of Leafs Morning Take. Of course, we'll recap this game. Might have a very special guest drop by as well, so stay tuned for that. But also, many thanks to Devante Smith-Pelly for dropping by today's show. We'll talk tomorrow, Rosie.
You bet. We'll see you there, and hopefully with a W and a different mood amongst Leafs Nation tomorrow.
At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Thank you to producer Vic. For Jay Rosehill, I'm Nick Alberga. We'll talk on Thursday. Peace out. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews. We got clips. We got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.